Welcome to Fairfield Public Access Television. I'm Susan Kessel, and I'm here today with two very creative people. I'm excited to introduce to you Kelsey Mullen and Mark Schaefer, who you all know. We're here and we're going to talk a little bit about Barhydt Chapel and conserving and preserving some of the features in it that possibly could be used in the Jefferson County Civic Center, a project that is proposed for Fairfield that's been dreamed about and a vision for a very long time. I'm on the board, as are 10 other members, and we have moved to a time when we're talking to Kelsey Mullen, who is an architect, to be. And he lives in Fairfield. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've lived here?
I've been in Fairfield since 1984, and participated in the architecture program at Iowa State and graduated there a couple years ago, and was practicing architecture in Denver, Colorado, and about a year ago moved back to Fairfield and got involved with Susan and the board and the Civic Center.
Kelsey actually is my daughter Stacy's age. But he's a very talented, nice young man, and we are excited to have him working on this project. And like you said, you did for your, what do you call it, when you were going to school, you took on the Civic Center as a project.
We called it thesis. It's a fifth-year project. And they give you the freedom, after years of telling you what to design, to do whatever project you want to do in your final year. And for my thesis, I took on the Civic Center.
And that is how we originally met you. I should say that it was during that time that we also had Martha Bell, who I went to school with, and a very good friend and daughter of Dorothy Bell, wonderful, wonderful, talented architect with a firm in Chicago. And she gave us a lot of time and input and did, what do you call that when you're getting all the questions, the programming for us, and met with people from our community, gave us a lot of time, traveled back and forth, and we are ever grateful to Martha Bell for doing that for us. And then things rapidly changed. We became discouraged, and we have been meeting as the Civic Center group for a number of years, monthly, and then even more than once a month. And finally, when Kelsey did move back, he expressed his interest in helping us again, and for free. And then you introduced us to Mark Bowers
and he owns a firm in Denver, Colorado called Architectural Workshop. I worked with Mark when I was out there, and proposed to the Civic Center that Mark and I team up and become the architects for the Civic Center.
And things have progressed, and we've been working hard and doing lots of things behind the scenes and continue. And Barhydt is happening right now too, and so we thought, what a wonderful idea if we could incorporate some things from Barhydt Chapel. If it's going to have to be torn down, let's help preserve some of the features. And so that is our concern, and what we're trying to do, and we're going to brainstorm here a little. But I have to say that even though we are making the effort to conserve some of these pieces, they might not necessarily be included in the Civic Center because they won't work, they're impractical, a lot of different reasons.
There are a lot of reasons that some of the elements may not be used, but at this point we don't want to regret not taking advantage of some elements that later on won't be at our disposal or be able to be utilized. And so I guess today, as we have been, we'll be walking through and, just like you said, brainstorming so that we can see anything and everything that we could possibly use in a new construction.
And I know one major thing is the pipe organ, which MUM has offered to pay for the removal and the crating up and storage, and that'll be done by John Connett, who's a wonderful person that we taped a show with the other day. And it is hoped that we can have that in our Civic Center but boy, that's a very big, unusual item, and it might not work. But if it can, that would be wonderful.
It just becomes a design issue, and it becomes something like that would become labor of love. And if it's something that we really want to put into this building, we can do it, or the whole organ or portions of the organ. But the important thing is that we're working on preserving it for the long term.
Right. So it will be kept in the community no matter what. And as we look around here, Mark, I don't know if you knew that some of this was in this bad a shape. We're upstairs in the balcony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty rocky. We have sections of plaster that have fallen, and in a minute I think Kelsey's going to point out a structural member over here that is literally falling apart. I mean, the wood is just falling off. Moldings that replicate the cast concrete structural piers down below. But yeah, it's seen better days.
Yes. So tell us about this, and we're going to walk around and brainstorm about things and why we can't use them, why we think we might, what they could be used for. Like I said, we've got two very creative people here, Mark and Kelsey.
Well, what you're looking at now is some pretty severe water damage done to one of the columns that's replicating the piers, the columns that are down in the nave that we'll look at in a minute here. But as you can see, as it's fallen apart, you can see exactly how it was built, which helps in replicating something like this for later construction. But this damage is irreversible and something that really needs some attention.
We did take an inventory one day, Tom Stanley and Ken Norton, myself and Kelsey, and we took photos and we inventoried things that we thought possibly could be saved. And we counted how many windows?
38 windows, including the two large 2.5, 3-story windows in the transept.
And we talked about we want to save all the windows, but some of them are in bad shape and might not be able to use, but maybe salvaged for pieces for the other. And I should mention that Ron Bovard in Fairfield, very well known throughout the country for his stained glass work, has offered very generously to remove all the windows and store them for us for free. So thank you, Ron Bovard. And
That's a big chunk. I mean, that's an incredible gift right there.
that is wonderful to have that, and that makes it possible for us to do this.
Exactly.
So,
one thing I'd like to say before I forget, when Ankeny Hall burned in 1902, that was a real big setback for Parsons College. It had been remodeled, I think, in the 1880s and was the main building. Ballard Hall had just been built the year before in 1901. And Parsons was, what, about 30 years old at that time, and experiencing growing pains and hoping to expand and so forth. So, you know, their main building goes up in flames, and I think all they saved was the typewriter from the president's office. It wasn't a whole lot to go on. So they knocked out partitions in Ballard Hall, which was built as a girls' dorm, and used that for classroom space, as well as the hen mansion was, of course, here. But one of the references that Susan Welty makes in her book, Fairfield, is that even though this disastrous thing visited itself upon the college, it precipitated a building boom in the next 10 years that made this building possible, as well as some of the other buildings that have since been torn down. And I guess my hope is, even though this is really hard to let go of, I mean, it's like, I have dealt with
part of you.
Yeah, I've dealt with a lot of anger on this, as well as have a lot of people in town. However, you know, this is maybe something leading to something bigger and better, and will give Fairfield a new lease on life that it badly needs. And certainly, any of these elements that can be utilized in a new civic center will give it an integrity that links the civic center with its history, you know, the history of the community, as well as giving it a design integrity that will make it quite unusual and set it apart from any other theatrical setting that you'll find in Southeast Iowa, certainly, and maybe in the Midwest.
I totally agree, and